just want to introduce Tony Ammirato, and myself. We've known each other for multiple years. Tony is a legend in the real estate industry and especially the new homes. So, Tony, how are you today?
I'm great, Tom. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that great introduction.
Yeah, well, I'd like you to share a little bit more about yourself, if you could, briefly.
Sure, absolutely. You know, as Tom mentioned, we've known each other for probably a dozen years or so. I've been in the real estate industry for almost 30 years now, 28 to be exact. And most of my career I've spent working with new home developers. Came out of the gate strong in sales after my first 2 years, went into management, and I've been there ever since. And through my 28 years and over covering 3 decades, I've seen a couple different market shifts. And one of the things that I'm pretty excited about is as Tom may have mentioned, I'm the vice president of a company called the Rhiness Company. The Rhiness Company, if any of you have been in the new home arena before, you probably know us by a thing called the Rhiness Report. Going all the way back to the early 1970s, predating the internet, the Rhiness Report was the Bible in which home builders measured themselves. We track sales, traffic, conversions, cancellations, all the way down to things like who your preferred lender is and incentives. So it's a wealth of information. So much, in fact, that Gary Rhiness, the founder of the Rhiness Company, was the first ever inductee into the Bay Area Builder Industry Hall of Fame. Like I said, it was basically the Bible to the new home industry pre-internet. And even since the advent of the internet, it's still a document that is used quite a bit. We have over almost 2,000, I should say, new homes communities, over 3 states and a dozen markets that report their information to us each and every week. Besides being the vice president of the Rhiness Company, I actually opened up my own brokerage back in 2016, specializing in working with new home builders. And most recently, I am one of your newest teammates, proud to say, here on the Tom Daves team over at EXP. One of the things that I've really appreciated so far in my time here at EXP is how everyone likes to share information, this team atmosphere, this camaraderie. So I got on the phone with Tom a couple of weeks ago. I said, Tom, what can I do to give my little bit of information, my little bit of assistance with my unique background to help your team? And here I am.
Awesome. Hey, well, great. Well, let's just jump right into the content. What are 3 things? What are some of the things that agents can do right now to take advantage of selling some more new homes?
Well, so I want to back up a little bit first. You know, I know there's a lot of people that right now, especially with the market shifts, are kind of a little concerned about the direction of the market. And I just wanted to share just a little bit of my story because I think it's going to resonate with some of you. Now, as I mentioned, I came out of the gate hot. I started late in real estate. It wasn't what my plan was out of college, much like I'm sure many of you on this call. But I found my home here in real estate. And as I mentioned, it was new homes for me, and I was at the top of my mountain. I won every award imaginable over about a 7-year period. And then all of a sudden, it came to a grinding halt. And it came to a grinding halt in a way that's not too dissimilar from what we're going through right now. There was a shift in the market. And when markets shift, agents need to learn to adapt. And currently, one of the prevalent market shifts that we have in our market right now is new construction. You know, back when Tom and I first knew each other, back prior to what is now in the history books as the Great Recession, Tom was one of those experienced agents that was able to adapt. And at that time, foreclosures were an epidemic in our market, and a lot of people adapted to that. Home builders that I represented started building or buying rather distressed properties and remodeling them versus building homes from the ground up because it was simply just a better business model. So as I was sitting there at the top of my mountain, all of a sudden one day I found myself unemployed. Builders weren't building. I wasn't a broker yet. This great company didn't exist, and I didn't know what to do. And as I looked around, I noticed home builders, agents like Tom. People were adapting, and I realized I had to adapt or find a new career. And I know that there's probably some of you that are concerned right now about the direction that may have had a lot of success prior to this market shift, much like myself, and you may be getting discouraged. The good news is this will pass. It always does. Things will get back to some resemblance of what we know as normal, but in the meantime, we need to deal with a market shift. And as I looked around back then, just like I am now, the professionals in this business, they find a way to adapt. Back then, it was distressed properties. Today, a big part of our adaptation is new construction. Now, most of us probably have seen the headlines by now. There is an inventory shortage, right? And what's caused the inventory shortage is that nobody wants to walk away from their 3% interest rate loans in the resale market. We are fortunate to have demand. In the Sacramento market in particular, most people don't realize this. Sacramento was the #1 most traveled or most relocated to destination in the entire country last year. It was not Florida. It was not Texas. It was Sacramento. And it's primarily the Bay Area buyers and buyers from further down Southern California moving intrastate, having that buying power of a out-of-state buyer while staying in state. We have a great local message to tell. And part of that is inventory, right? We need inventory. So if people aren't selling their houses, where is that new inventory going to come from? We are going to build it. Now, I know people can kind of be shy on these. I usually like to be interactive, but does anyone have any idea? Tom, maybe do you have an idea? On average, nationwide, what percentage of annual home sales are represented by the new home sector? 100% of sales, what percent are typically new home sales?
25%.
It's actually a little bit lower than that. It's about 15% on a national average. Does anybody want to take a stab at what that number is now?
18%.
It's about double. In many markets, it's 30% or more. If you are not including home builders in your marketing strategy right now, when they are accounting for 30% or more, give or take, of the inventory out there, you're missing the boat. So I know some of you have probably worked with home builders before, and some of you may not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you kind of a home builder 101. Some of this, some of you may be familiar with, and again, maybe not so much for some others. So the first thing to know about market adaptations is every market is different. And as I mentioned, our adaptation right now, we are going through yet another historical event, much like the last Great Recession. It was hinged around financing. Today, our issue is interest rates have doubled more quickly in the shortest amount of time than ever before in the history of mortgages in this country. We are getting the 1-2 punch right now with interest rates. They are lowering our buyers' buying power, and it's keeping inventory off the market by keeping people in their homes. New homes is absolutely a counterpunch to that on both levels. Now, let's talk a little bit about recently. So recently here in Sacramento, to give you an idea, last July, Sacramento, we had a 24% increase over the average amount of new home sales in any given July. It was 212% year over year from last year. Let me say that again. It was 212% year over year. Now, I'm going to put a big asterisk on that number because one of the unique things of last year's market is because so much of the market was heavily invested in new construction, and because of supply chain issues and all the joys that COVID brought us, it was taking builders what would normally take 4 to 6 months to build a house, 6 to 12. And let's just take a scenario. I go in February and I put down my deposit and I get pre-qualified. And by the time my house is done in November, interest rates have gone up 2.5%. Guess what? There's a good chance I don't qualify anymore. And for many home builders, when the interest rates started adjusting as rapidly as they were last year, they didn't have the ability to lock in their buyers on long-term rates. And some home builders experienced as much as a 42% cancellation rate last year. That led to all the giveaways in the fourth quarter. And we'll talk about that here in a second, since today is actually the first day of the fourth quarter for those builders who are on the fiscal calendar year. So moving forward, how are we going to take advantage of this new home trend right now? So for starters, I want to go to the top 6 reasons why you should be including new home builders in your fourth quarter marketing campaigns right now. First, we've already talked about a little bit is inventory. It's the only place it's going to come from. Yeah, there's going to be needs-based buying and selling. Life still happens. People are still going to sell their homes. But again, it's been well publicized that there is not that much resale inventory out there, and we're just going to have to build some. So inventory is the top of mind reason right now why we want to focus on new construction. Number two, they're brand new. And some of this may seem a little bit mundane or obvious, but it's brand new construction. With brand new construction means the homes are under warranty. Anybody else have any ideas why you want to get into a new house other than it's brand new and it's energy efficient? And it's under warranty. How about this one? No inspections. That's a big one for your first-time buyers. You have no inspections on a new house. They're all energy efficient. They're built to this thing called Title 24. Most of you are familiar with the solar mandate that took place in 2020. There were some communities that were grandfathered and didn't have to put solar on, but most of those are built out. So they're energy efficient. They're under warranty. They're brand new. Your buyers don't have to pay for inspections. There's a nice little handful of benefits right there. The next reason, number three, and these are in no particular order, by the way, incentives. Now, I mentioned earlier that new homes are going to help counter the 1-2 punch of interest rates. Incentives right now, look, builders have no problem giving away money. Last year, I was giving away over $100,000 on some of our homes. Let me say that again. Over $100,000 to sell some of our homes. And we're going to talk about why that's important in the fourth quarter and why home builders are different in the fourth quarter than most private party sellers when we get to my 3 tips. But these incentives, look, home builders like to sell houses. I know that's probably not a shock or a surprise to any of you, and they have the deep pockets to get it done. Right now, for example, you have companies like Lennar offering a 5.25% interest rate if you use their lender. They are doing what's called a forward commitment. Now, most of us know sellers in general are restricted based on your loan type as far as how much they can give you in incentives. Builders have mastered working their way around that. They will go in this example like Lennar, and they will buy, call it $10 million of money, a block of money. And they'll pay a premium to get that money at an interest rate that's exclusive to people that they are lending to through their preferred lending sources. This does not go against your 6% concession typically on an FHA loan, for example. Home builders need to sell their houses, and they have the money to help you sell their houses. So if interest rates are a problem, home builders have the money to help give your buyer an interest rate that's long gone by now. Bidding wars. I'm hearing, especially at the entry level, and some of you may have experienced this already. Look, first-time buyers are getting pounded right now. It's unfortunate, but it is a reality of our market. Not only are they competing with each other, but they're competing with 1031 exchange dollars coming from other places like the Bay Area. Someone sells a C- property for $1 million. They'll come up here and they'll buy 2 in a much better neighborhood for rental properties. That's right in the wheelhouse of the first-time buyer. First-time buyers are getting hammered. I had a client last year, came in. I was ear hustling one of my salespeople. He was doing a great job of a fact find. He asked the customer, how's your home buying experience been so far? And she said, miserable. So I slid around from around the corner, asked her why it was so miserable. And she went on to tell a story that all of us have heard before. VA buyer, multiple offers, outbid, finally gets their offer accepted. Appraisal came in under value. The seller had the nerve to ask them to pay the difference. And of course, they couldn't. They not only lost their opportunity to buy the home, but they spent about $1,000 on inspections for a home they're not going to own now. They ended up buying a house at one of my new home communities, but they were almost out of the market because they were just beat down. These are real stories, and here's the great thing about working with home builders. Typically, there's no bidding wars. Sometimes, but most of the times there isn't. Home builders run their businesses completely different than resale in many ways. Excuse me. That is one of them. A private party seller is selling one house. A home builder might be selling 100. So rather than have 5 people fight for one house, we would rather just sell 5 houses. So you don't typically have the bidding war issues that you have to deal with, typically, especially depending on your price range, that you'll have to handle it at times in the resale market. The number 5, they're paying big commissions. Look, like I said, builders have no problem paying money. The problem that they have is when the lender tells them they're giving too much. So we're always looking for ways to give more money and incentives, and oftentimes that's to the realtor community. Home builders have been paying bonuses to realtors for the last 18 months, and I expect that will continue. Now, whether you want to recycle some of that and help your buyer with closing costs or whatever else, that's between you and your buyer. But there is plenty of money out there. Now, here's one of the best parts about that. Home builders need us right now. Even though our local market is performing better than most, and even though we have demand, the obvious interest rate issue and others have made things, buyers a little bit harder to come by. So they do need us. Believe me when I can tell you, over my 28-year career, primarily working with home builders, I have had many, many, many conversations with realtors with respect to the relation realtors and the new home community typically has. One of the biggest things I always hear is, it's so frustrating working with home builders. Sometimes you guys love us and sometimes you don't, and you only pay us when you need to. I hate to say this, but the answer is yes. Absolutely correct. If it were your business, you would probably do the same thing. But here's the great news. Home builders need us right now. Something happened that I saw about a week ago, and I'm sure many of you have gotten the same email over the last week. I was shocked. I've been in this business almost 30 years. Never once have I ever known Elliott Homes to broker participate with the realtor community. I would imagine that no one on this call has ever been paid a commission, except for maybe Tom. He's been around forever. I would imagine probably no one on this call has ever received a commission firsthand from selling a home to Elliott Homes direct. Guess what? They're broker co-oping right now. They need you. So the number 5 reason why you should absolutely be working with home builders right now is because they need you. And the number 6 reason why you should be working with home builders right now is because if you do this properly, I promise you this will be one of the easiest transactions you will ever have. You're not writing a contract. You're not doing inspections. You're not negotiating requests for repairs, and you're not even kicking in $500 out of your commission for the, duct tape and bubble gum warranty when they close escrow. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Man, this is great. Good stuff.
I'm talking fast. There's a lot here, Tom. So I apologize, guys. I'm talking fast. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. So let's get right into the 3 tips. So I cannot tell you how many times in my career, my tip number 1 is going to be not to make the number 1 mistake that I see more than anything in my almost 30-year career working with home builders and resale agents. Tom, I know you know what this mistake is. What's the number 1 mistake that most realtors do when working with home builders?
Don't go with your client the first time they go to the model.
Absolutely, Patrick. Great job. Thank you. Yeah. So, guys, this might be kind of tough to understand or get your arms around, but as I mentioned, the new home world operates differently in many ways than resale. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to take a call from an upset agent or broker and explain to them the difference between referrals and representation. Home builders pay for your referrals. They don't pay for your representation. Now, are you representing your clients? Absolutely. But the biggest difference between a referral and representation is a referral is time sensitive. I'm a buyer. I walk into an open house. I fall in love. I call Patrick later, who's representing me, say, Patrick, I found the house. Let's submit an offer. That's our normal course of business, right? You do that in a new home community. I go to a new home community, call Patrick. Patrick will call the builder and say, too bad. You are not the procuring cause. We all remember that from our exam, right? That's what a referral is. You are the procuring cause. My number one tip for you working with home builders, educate your buyers, please. I know it's tempting to stop in on their way to Home Depot or grandma's house or lunch or wherever at that new community with all the flags and shiny signs and activity. Don't do it. Please educate your buyers. Do not go into a new home community without me. Now, during COVID, a lot of builders actually would allow you to pre-register them online. Many builders have online chat agents that you can register them through. Take your shot, right? And I know how it is. You get an inbound lead from Zillow and you're talking to your client, and your client's right away, hey, send me a list of all these places to go to. And again, in resale, that's normal, right? That's okay. In new homes, you're going to hurt yourself. So please make sure that you are educating your buyers first. Do not go into a new homes community without me. Allow me to register you first. And if push comes to shove, the default in the industry always has been, as Patrick said, you have to accompany them on the first visit. If you do that, you are miles ahead of the pack from the very, very beginning. Remember, there's a difference between referrals and representation. Home builders are paying for your referrals, and referrals are time sensitive. You need to be there before your buyer is there. At the very least, you need to be there together. That's tip number one, okay? Don't make the number one mistake. Tip number two, and this is a big topic that I'm only going to graze on. You need to think like a home builder. Well, what in the world does that mean? Let me give you one tip to give you an idea. The first thing most people, whether it's agent or buyer, want to negotiate is price, right? What do you think the absolute last thing is a home builder wants to negotiate? It's price. Why do you think the price is the last thing they want to negotiate? It goes back to the fact that they are selling neighborhoods, not one house. If I give Patrick or Tom a $50,000 discount on my plan one, guess what? I'm going to be answering to that appraisal for the next 6 months, because as we all know, appraisers can go back, and they do, 6 months. So if I give one house a discount, I now basically have to answer for that on every other house I sell for the next 6 months. Don't try to negotiate the price. It's the absolute last thing. Ask for incentives, right? Ask for closing costs. Ask for options. Whatever is important to your buyer, and that is something else that you absolutely need to know before walking in. What's important to your buyer? What's their needs? Negotiate to your buyer's needs. Now, the last thing I'm going to give you for your tip today, because it's relevant to what the calendar says today, is your fourth quarter marketing strategy. One of the drastic differences between the new home sector and resale happens in the fourth quarter. I think most of us would probably agree that if you are a resale seller and you are looking to sell your home, which, by the way, historically, we have just entered in the last week, traditionally the second best time of the year in a normal market cycle to sell your home. We were talking about it a little bit here just before the call started. Summer has what we call the summer slowdown. Summers are compacted right now with school years being shorter. Kids are on vacation. People are checking out for the 6 or 7 weekends during the summer. Once school gets back in, life gets back to normal. Buying habits have a tendency to get back to normal, and you're before the holidays. It's a great time. But let's say you get your house on the market late. Most people selling their private house, if you haven't sold your home by Halloween or maybe the first week or two of November, if you do not have to sell, you will pull your house off the market and relist it in the spring and try to get more money. That's what I advise my clients to do. Most of you probably do the same thing. Again, that's if you don't have to sell, and if you're not a Tahoe cabin or something where selling in the winter is a peak season, okay? Home builders are completely different. Home builders need to sell homes every week, every month. And as we go into the fourth quarter, it's their year end. It is bargain time. The fourth quarter is the season for buyers buying from home builders. As I mentioned last year, I was personally giving away $100,000 or more on homes that we had canceled, that we had to resell and try to recapture our numbers. So as we're heading into the fourth quarter, if you work with buyers, you need to include home builders because they are going to give you the inventory. They're going to give you the incentives to overcome those interest rate increases and help your buyers qualify to get into the house. Now, does anybody have any questions? I see we're at like 9:27. Man, that was a fast 27 minutes. Any questions that I can answer for you? So here's the last piece of advice. I'm going to throw in a bonus tip here when it comes to negotiating with a home builder. The whole notion of thinking like a home builder. I'm a home buyer. I go in there. There's a lot they just released. Tony told me, hey, you know what? This is the time to go get a deal. I'm going to go negotiate this house they just released. Guess what? Home builders like to sell the homes that are finished first. So your bonus tip is if you really want to get those big incentives, you need to buy a standing inventory house or a home that's close to being finished. If you're going in trying to negotiate on a home that's going to take 9 months to build, that seller has no urgency to sell it to you. Over 9 months, we're going to get through another spring. Negotiate the homes that will be built first. That's where your builders or where the seller's level of interest is and where their motivation is to sell those homes, the ones that are going to be done first. Okay, we're at 9:29. How am I doing, Tom?
Hey, you're doing awesome. There is one question in the chat. Can you see that?
Go ahead. Well, I can't see it. No. What's the question?
So, what site is the best site to find all of the new builds?
What site? Well, right now in Sacramento, I'm going to give you a corridor. So right now, the Roseville, Rockland, Placer corridor accounts for the bulk of new homes.
Them online. What website or what websites? How do you find them?
Oh, well, okay. So here's another little bonus tip for you. So about 10 years ago, a bunch of new home professionals created this marketing company called BDX. It stands for Builder Digital Experience. They do the bulk of all the advertising for all the home builders in the country. They own properties like Realtor.com, and the one that I would suggest you go to is called New Home Source. It's one of the BDX properties, newhomesource.com. You will find just about every home builder advertising on that site.
Awesome. And then, Tony, if someone wants to reach out, how do they get a hold of you?
Let's break in that new EXP email of mine, Tom. I believe it's anthony.ammirato@exprealty. I think it's .com or .net. You guys would probably know better than me.
Okay, we got it in there for you. Okay.
Perfect.